that we can be centered and grounded together by taking a deep inhale, holding it, and exhale slowly. Another deep inhale, hold it, and exhale. Another deep inhale. And as you exhale, just let go of the things that didn't serve you today. Deep inhale. And let it go. Breathe normally. Thank you for joining us for that brief breathing exercise. And today we have a guest. And our guest is Britnni Cosgrove. And she is a transformational life and business coach who helps ambitious souls unlock their most confident, magnetic selves so they can create impact doing what they love. A certified mastery coach and breathwork facilitator, she specializes in mindset mastery, overcoming self-sabotage, and breaking through limitations. Britnni also serves on the board of Travel Through Trauma. I'm going to say that again. That sounds like a little tongue twister. She sits on the board of Travel Through Trauma as their resident life coach, fueling her mission to help people live with more passion, purpose, and peace. Wow. Britnni, would you like to add anything to your bio?
It's definitely a mouthful, isn't it? No, just really that I love what I do and I'm so honored to be here today.
Well, thank you for being here, and I love what you do. So let's get into that. You're a transformational coach. What was that pivotal moment for you in your life that led you to this work?
It might be a little cliche by this point, but it was 2020. I always say that at the same time that the rest of the world slowed down and hit that pause button, so did I. And it was really the first time in my waking memory that I had hit that pause. And I started asking myself questions like, where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want? And I realized that the direction I was heading was not what I wanted at all. So I did my pivot year that year and I started my first online business. And it was the following year that I started studying life coaching techniques and did a year-long certification program and just fell in love with what this work is.
Wow. Wow. Um, what about life coaching and what this work is that you fell in love with?
It changed my life from the inside out. So I remember vividly when I entered that program, I didn't have any inner access. I didn't feel emotions. I didn't feel connected to my purpose. I had a lot of very masculine energy with my motivation. So I was very ambitious and very driven, but I was in burnout and I was only in my mid 20s. And when I started learning what life coaching can be, and I say can be because it is a big industry, but really what true life coaching is getting to the root of the things and the ways I was holding myself back in a really healing and compassion based way. So I started doing inner child work and really working through everything that I had faced up until that point. And it was a 180. Life looked different. I was different in the most powerful, magnetic, beautiful ways. It truly is. When I say transformation, it's not because it's a buzzword. It's because I was so tired of that yo-yo effect. We hear that mostly in like the diet culture, but really that yo-yo effect where you're treating the surface level and it's that in and out push pull energy. And I was so exhausted from that. So when I was able to really heal and transform my own life from that root, from my core, it changed everything.
It's so powerful, and powerful in a way because you said you're in your mid 20. You were in your mid 20. And here you are um in such a pivotal moment in your life that you are transforming. And listening to you, I hear your passion. I feel it. Not just hear it, I feel it. And want to know what, other than the pandemic, what pushed you during that time to experience this transformation. And the way you articulate it, you feel the power and the magnetic energy that occurred back then, that you're able to carry and hold, and not just present but share.
It's wild. I remember vividly, I was living in the Florida Keys at this time. So I'm living in paradise and everything looked perfect on paper. The relationship, the house, the job, the money, the everything it had worked out. And yet I was, remember driving home. I'm on the overseas highway, ocean on both sides, beautiful sunny day, palm trees, like literally paradise. And I was struggling with not doing really harmful things to myself that day. And I just remember thinking, how can everything look so perfect and I'm not okay? How can everything be perfect on the outside and I am like this on the inside? And I knew something had to change. I got to that point where I was so aware of how uncomfortable I was with what I was experiencing that I just knew anything had to change. I didn't know what, I didn't know how, but I knew I needed something to be different. And this was not new. I started struggling with severe anxiety and depression when I was in kindergarten. So I was little when I started carrying the weight of the world. And by the time I was in my teenage years, I was excellent at masking that. And I had the cheerleader preppy face to the world, and no one knew the struggles I was going through, the self-harm I was going through, the ways that I I look at my wrinkles now and I'm grateful for them because there was a moment when I didn't know, I didn't think it would ever happen. And so I finally got to the point where it didn't matter what I was doing. I was so ambitious and so driven that I got the things I wanted. But that was never the point. It wasn't enough. And that was my wake up call. And it was, yeah, a blessing that this was around the same time that our state went into lockdown. And I had to hit that pause button. I had to stop that go, go, go energy. And it was just something where I didn't want the things I was thinking. I didn't want how I was feeling. So it's like, okay, what do I want?
Hmm.
If I know what I don't want, let's get clear on what I do want and let's let that start pulling. And it was just one step at a time, one day at a time. And I remember when I was building the online business before I got into coaching, just how much fun I was having. For the first time in a long time, I was just enjoying and creating and following alignment. And at the time, I didn't realize it was alignment, but I can look back and be like, oh, it's because I was putting the puzzle pieces together. I myself was a puzzle and it was all just coming together. It was a big year.
As you said that you were in a completely different career and you had been very successful, and but you realized very much so that even though on the surface everything looked great and to everyone else it looked good and beautiful, but there was an emptiness, an unfulfilledness, a feeling like you were going in the wrong direction. So as you started to put that pause on and make that realization, what were some of the first steps that you took? Like, how somebody else who's sort of struggling with that, feeling like it should all be good because on the surface it looks good, but there's something missing. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah. One of the things that I started doing early on was a scripting practice. And so every day I would just start journaling on what do I want? What if I were to wake up and write out everything that happened during the day on my perfect, amazing, best day ever, what would it look like? And starting with just, 6 months to 12 months out, not big steps, not big picture, just next. What's the next chapter? What's something that excites me? And at first, it would start with the more superficial things, talking about the job, talking about the house, the money, like those types of things. And as I kept diving into that, I just kept asking why. Why do I want this? Well, why do I want that? And just continuing to ask that question, getting to the root of what is underneath all of the things I want. What is that deeper component that I think it's giving me? For me personally, it was around freedom, the spaciousness and freedom to do as I please and have as I please and build my life as I please. But it's different for everyone. And then from there, I really got clear on what my values were. And I took everyone has a lot of values, but I got clear on what my core values were. Those 3 to 5 that I cannot live without, that I will not live without. And as soon as I saw what those were and defined them on my terms, then I just got to work applying them to different areas of life. It was very much kind of like building bricks, one step at a time, one area of life at a time. And then as I started infusing more of my values into the day-to-day things, into the life I was already living, into my plans, it started naturally opening up more and more and more. Because at first it was just one tiny step, but then after a little while, the steps got bigger and bigger. And then pretty soon I was thinking, okay, in a year from now, this is what I want. Well, in 5 years from now, maybe I want this. And I just started being more playful with it.
How did the move come? Because you said you had been living in Florida, and through this transformation, you also decided you needed to transform your location. So could you elaborate on, that part of it? Was it, something that just happened and so became part of it, or was it a distinct, I need to make a location change in order to continue on this path?
It was more around following the open doors, really tuning inward and being like, okay, I was so attuned to what do I want. For a long time, I hadn't let myself really allow that in. And once I did, I was like, I'm not stopping. So getting really clear on, am I running away from something? Am I bored? Like what about this situation? Like for me, it just felt complete. I felt like I had learned the lessons. I was just ready for something new, but I wasn't jumping into something new and I wasn't in a rush to get out. And in the past moves, I had been more in that energy. So I knew the difference between running away versus running to. And then once I was honest with myself and owned that I am running to something, I'm not running away. There's no work to do around that. It just gets to be fun. I just followed the open doors. I just kind of put it out there into life, into the universe, into God's hands, and just said, okay, like I'm ready for something new, something, whatever's next. And I had a few ideas, but it wasn't anything specific I was being called towards. And so from there, it started with one of my best friends, ended up taking a 6-month long trip, an expedition all the way through around Asia and Southeast Asia. So I went and house sat for her. And that was kind of like, okay, now I'm on the West Coast and I get to explore this area. And then from there, another housing opportunity opened up. And it was just following the energy, following what feels aligned to me. And that specific process of tuning into alignment has been something I've been building intentionally ever since 2020 when I started feeling the impact of shifting into alignment.
Wow. What role did your value system play in the development of your intuition? Because that's what I'm hearing, that you followed your intuition. And I love how you expanded on the importance of values, of your core values. And it is not something we promote a lot. So it's like music to my ear, hearing you identify that. But what role did that play in your intuition and following your gut, as we would say?
Yeah, I see it kind of like the gateway opening to it all. Because before that, I knew I had values, of course, but I had never taken the time to go through a whole list of them, a whole sheet of them, and really get clear on like, what are my values? Not my family's, not my parents, not my spouses, like all these other beautiful ones. What's unique to me that I am not willing to live without? And then as I started intentionally bringing that into my life, and even if just as much as an acknowledgement, it wasn't always that I could do something about it, but sometimes just acknowledging, oh, okay, freedom's one of my core values. How can I infuse that into the emails I'm writing? How can I infuse that into doing laundry? Like little things, like I'm talking baby steps. And as I was intentional and consistent in showing up for my values and intentionally bringing them more and more into my life, as in any place I could, as much as I could, I feel like it just opened up this this connection with myself that had never been there previously. And to me, that is what intuition is the deepest, most potent, most powerful connection with oneself. And from that, my belief is we're connected to one and all, which is why sometimes our intuition will cue us into different things that are going on, not necessarily just what's internal. But really, the more I showed up for myself by bringing in my values, and again, because I had taken the time to define these as my core values, I knew how important they were to me. Because I had taken that time and I was showing up for them and bringing them in as much as I could, it was like the intuition's call, or the volume of the intuition just got louder and louder, and it became more natural to listen to it. The first couple of times that I was working with my intuition, or I felt like my intuition was speaking to me, it was kind of a shocking experience and I didn't trust it fully. I have a very logical mind, and so I was trying to logic intuition. But yeah, just over time, the more I showed up and the more I saw how showing up, how that felt, the outcomes, the results, it just continuously gave me that proof that, okay, this intuition, this inner knowing, I can rely on it. I can trust it. And now it is as important. It's at least as important to me in my decisions as any amount of logic is. And if it came down to a 50-50, I would follow my intuition over logic, which if my younger self could hear me say that, she would have a conniption.
I think a lot of people can relate to that because we're so, children are so, um, they dream and they listen to their intuition and they're by feeling. And then in school, it almost gets like sucked out of us and it's like logical. There was a song, the logical song, and it kind of talked about that very thing. Um, so when you were just starting to listen to your intuition, if you can remember, what were something as an example that you might have had that sort of intuitive feeling and that you might have sort of said, you tried to sort of push it away and then said, no, I think it's my intuition that it is trying to lead me in that direction. Can you kind of
Yeah.
elaborate on kind of what that was felt like for our audience?
Yeah, I can share. I'll share one of my favorite stories because it's actually how I truly got into the coaching world. So at the end of 2020, I'd been listening to a podcast, which is one of the reasons why podcasting is so near and dear to my heart, is because that was how I was brought into the realm of self-development. And so I was listening to this podcast, and it was a coach was the guest speaker. And everything she was saying, I felt like it was speaking to my core, like to this deep soul part of me. And it's funny because I had so many projections about the coaching industry. I thought it was fake or woo woo or too go, that heavy masculine energy. I just was not bought into it. So I was skeptical listening to the podcast, but then as she was speaking, I was like, oh, there's something here. Fast forward, this is the woman that has put together decades of her life's work to create a training program around coaching methodologies. So as I'm getting, like, in the weeks leading up to the program starting, she has different types of promotional things going on. And one of them was a week-long boot camp. And so I remember thinking, it was called Confidence in Clients. And I remember thinking, well, I don't need clients, but I could always use more confidence. Because again, I wasn't even in a client-facing business at this point. I just wanted to grow a business and I wanted to feel more confident. By the third day of this boot camp, I had an inner knowing, an inner pull where I was like, oh, I don't know what this is, but this is for me. Something about this type of coaching, this type of work is very much about helping people by looking forward, not just focusing on the past. You know, therapy is so powerful and important, but I had never felt like a fit for that profession. So everything that we were doing in this week-long thing was speaking to me. So I ended up applying for the program, not knowing much about her or the industry or anything like that. And I remember just putting it out to the world. I was also kind of newer to the spiritual side of things. I didn't know much about manifesting or anything along those lines. So I was just starting to work with the bigger entities that be. And so I put it out there. I said, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my own coach, and I'm looking for more information on being a coach. If this program is not for me, that's okay. Because I didn't know if she was accepting everyone. I didn't know. But I said, if it is for me, if this is where I'm meant to be, show me an orca. Because I've always said that's like my spirit animal. And I said, I don't care if it's a picture, a cartoon, the word orca, the word killer whale, anything. I was like, that will be my sign that this specific program at this specific time is for me. And I just kind of let it go. And I remember the following weekend, I'm on the couch and I get the acceptance email. And it was fun. I was like, oh, nice. We all like, accolades. But that to me was not my yes. And a few hours later, I was scrolling on social media and I saw this info chart, and it had every single subspecies of killer whale, all like 18 something different types of species. It had orca, it had killer whale, it had the Latin names for it, it had a little cartoon in the corner. And my entire body felt chills. And to me, that was my first time feeling my intuition come through, was that full body. And even as I'm talking right now, I feel it again, full body chills. And then there was this ease. It wasn't that I wasn't afraid, because at that time, like, I had never invested like that before. I didn't have that much confidence in that, but I just felt so much ease in it. It was still a fear, there was still the doubt, but there was like this more central energy of calmness. And since then, I've also learned that that's another way my intuition speaks. If I feel like that center energy is stillness, then the fear and the doubt feel like they're on the fringe. They're not the ones in the driver's seat. So that was my first time somatically feeling that intuition, really feeling it in my body, that inner knowing just energetically rippling all the way through my body.
Well, that's such a great example, because you could literally sort of feel it occurring as you were describing it, which is great for people who are listening and watching, that they can kind of get that sensation.
So you were also a breath work facilitator. When did that begin?
Kind of around the same time. I had been introduced a little bit to breathwork in, I want to say 2020, right? Maybe towards the end of 2020. And I had kind of experienced it a little bit, and I knew it was profound because I could feel the impact of it, but it scared me at the same time. I felt out of control is really what it was. When my hands would kind of clamp up, or feeling the tingles, and